Really glad that I get to go second and Mehmet broke the ice.
Oh, wait, hold on.
What?
Let me do an intro to the intro.
Yeah, tell me what the...
Okay, hi, everybody.
Why are we
Thank you.
here?
Some of you were here last time, some of you were not. This is the second ever Tuesday Talks at the Powerhouse, which is my house. I also share it with two other lovely ladies, and we've been storing some boys in the basement lately, and it keeps growing more and more down there. So that's kind of fun. They come out every so often, so you might see them. Yes, so this is great. I love to absorb information. I hardly ever keep it, but it's nice when I can get it from someone and know to go back, like where I can go back to get it again. But the initial experience with the new information is always fun, so I like that. I can't promise I'll remember anything next week. But so I just thought, it's gonna start getting colder out, it's going to be depressing, and I tend, to hole up and not get out. And I know so many brilliant people who are doing so many cool things, and so I just thought, well, I can totally set this up to my advantage. I can bring everybody to my house so I don't have to go anywhere. I can learn cool stuff. We can all learn cool stuff and have something that is set up that everybody's committed to so that I know it's going to keep happening and I can hold myself accountable to have this really cool thing, going on throughout the winter. So right now I've got people scheduled all the way through the end of January, and and it's every Tuesday. On Facebook I invite people to the event each week so they can get a refresher, and the event lists everything scheduled through November, so you can pick and choose what ones you want to come to, or you can just be a regular, and then at the end of November I'll post the next 2 months. If you're not on Facebook, just let me know. I can email you the schedules. Changes happen, so it's nice to just glance back over it from time to time. Yeah, and last week we had Mehmet go first, and what was his big fancy?
I don't remember, but he knocked it out of the park.
It was insane.
It was really
It was totally insane, and it was great. And it actually intimidated a lot of people, even people who hadn't come. They saw the title and the blurb, and they were like, I can't ever present at Tuesday Talks. But I just want this to be wide open. So if you like this, keep coming. If you have something cool you want to present, please do. I mean, I'm hoping everything from like totally insane and silly to super heady intellectual and anything in between, lecture style, interactive, whatever, arts and crafts, you name it. So, feel free to make suggestions if you're interested in participating, and keep coming. And thanks for coming.
Hey.
Thanks for having it.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. I think one reason it worked really good with Mehmet is because, although it did sound really academic, it's something that he really loves. And this is something that I really love and want to share with y'all. I was lucky enough to go to school and study linguistics. And one fun thing that you talk about in linguistics school is, so what's your area? What are you into, right? And I was able to say pretty quickly that what I love is translation, especially poetry translation. I think we learn a lot about how the mind works. I think we learn a lot about what can be done with language when we look at poetry, because it's such a distilled kind of language. It's so powerful because it's thought about very carefully when it's made by a real poet. The forms of the words are important. And so what happens when you translate? Because the forms of the words are different, it by definition is a problem. And sometimes it's pretty easy. And sometimes it's almost impossible. And I'm going to carry you through several translations of something else that I love, which is a Brazilian Bossa Nova. Well, we can get started in just a second. First of all, does anybody remember being monolingual before you learned any other language? It's like, how does that...
Prison!
Yeah, what happens to a lot of people, I think, is they think, oh, I'm going to go to my first Spanish class. I'm just going to learn the Spanish words for everything. And that's not really what language is. It's not all English with different words, right? And so when you start translating, the first problem is that word level. And you sometimes are lucky because some words are very similar from language one, our source language, to our target language, or language two. And one Bossa Nova that's world famous is Garota de Ipanema, girl from Ipanema. And girl and garota they're very similar words in a lot of ways. We start with a G, right? We've got an Earl sound, which is very English, right? And we've got these lovely vowels, which is very Brazilian. It's with an ah. And so, oh, this is a very Brazilian word, garota, right? It's very Brazilian. Garota. And girl, right? So also, these words are similar. I'm sure in some languages, if you use the word girl, you're talking about a kid. And for better or for worse, in both Portuguese and American English, garota can be somebody who's up to 20. And I'm not too surprised when I hear 40-year-old women call each other girl, or themselves girl. And it's the same in Portuguese. In Ipanema, girl from Ipanema is a place, right? And then we start, if we look a little bit past the music reputation of Bossa Nova, you find out it's a really beautiful place. And that's another goal of mine, is to help people see that Bossa Nova is not just elevator music. So Corcovado, again, this is a very Brazilian word. 4 translations. The problem of symbolic equivalence. Symbolic equivalence, we talked about it just a little bit right now. Girl, garota, they're not exactly the same, but we can find some things that are very English about one, very Brazilian in the other, and say, okay, there's kind of an equivalence there. Even though they aren't equal, they have some similarities. Corcovado is, does anybody know what it is? I only have 4 of these, so you really do have to share these around. This is the Christ that's on a mountain that overlooks Rio. Any Brazilian will know exactly what you're talking about. It is as famous in Brazil as the Golden Gate Bridge is in America. It's as famous as the Statue of Liberty. And it, just like those places, has kind of a touristy vibe, but it also has a really symbolic vibe that, oh, it means something bigger. And when you just see the title, you already know, as a Brazilian, you already have an emotional connection. Corcovado is this Christ on the mountain. It's been there since the 30s. It was put up for to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the independence of that country. It's a very Catholic country. It's it represents Rio to the rest of Brazil, just like the Statue of Liberty represents Rio. How are we going to turn that into an English poem? Well, let's look. First of all, on the first page, you'll see that there's the little teeny tiny words underneath the English, or the Portuguese words. This is called a gloss. It will show you what each word means. It looks kind of like a word-by-word translation. Another tricky thing about this, we aren't just trying to get the meaning right and maybe some of the nice poetic forms, but it's a song. A successful translation you'll be able to sing. So I'm going to start off by singing it. And I think you might get an idea of how delicate this melody is. Corcovado. Num cantinho violão, este amor uma canção pra fazer feliz a quem se ama. Muita calma pra pensar e ter tempo pra pensar, sonhar. Da janela vê-se Corcovado, o Redentor, que lindo. Quero a vida sempre assim, com você perto de mim, até eu apagar da velha chama. E eu que era triste, descrente deste mundo, ao encontrar você, eu conheci o que é felicidade, meu amor.
That was really sing to that music. That's amazing.
It's a delicate little melody, isn't it? And it goes over a very delicate structure of chords. Okay, the harmonics. Oh, it's so mental. The music. It's so intellectual, and it's also about emotions. It's about love, and it's about sadness, and it's about how your song really just crushes the last guy who wrote a bossa nova, because really bossa nova was invented out on the beach in Rio in 1960, 1958. You know, these years were years when a small group of guys with guitars wanted to impress each other, wanted to impress the women, and they were writing these songs. Girl from Ipanema, to talk about another word really quick, Girl from Ipanema was a song that was originally written, or it was first published to be on a TV show called Dirigível. Okay, garota and girl, we said they work together pretty well. Dirigível is, I love the sound of that word. Dirigível. In Portuguese, it even has a pretty sound. And I think it has when you think of a dirigível, you think, oh, what a lovely thing. It's a steerable thing. A dirigível, come in, is it's a beautiful steerable balloon in the sky. And the English translation, unfortunately, is blimp. And if you're going to have a hot TV show in the United States called Blimp, it would really bring to mind a lot of things. People would already start to assume something. So you can see that even at the level of words, we have to make some decisions. You could call it dirigible, maybe. Or you could call it Zeppelin, maybe. But these are already, you're starting to think about the Hindenburg. And, okay, so words are important. And the individual meaning and sounds of the words are important too. I think that you can see some interesting things about Portuguese when you go through the gloss. I hope that you can share it with somebody.
We can share here too.
Yeah, share around a little bit. Luckily, these are European languages, and we don't have to really do a lot of changes. They're very similar languages in a lot of ways. So the gloss here doesn't make any sense. If you just read the gloss, you'd say this is not at all in any kind of sentences. Okay. So if you turn the page to the literal translation, it's really trying to keep as close to the words as possible and just make it grammatical. In the corner, a guitar, this love, a song, to make happy the one you love, a lot of calm to think, and there's time to dream. Through the window, you can see Corcovado, the Redeemer. How beautiful. I want life to be always like this, with you near to me, until the old flame goes out. And me, who was sad, unbelieving in this world, when I met you, I learned what happiness is, my love. And when I read this, it's not a poem. In fact, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We need to go beyond a literal translation. Although, already, I hope you're starting to get an idea of what this is really about. This is a great place to start. Notice I started this in 2006. Let's get closer to the real meaning of the poem. Turn the page to the first lyrical translation. And I'm going to try, in this version, to go beyond that literal and have some of the same poetics that we saw in the original, some rhymes, okay, getting closer to having the right number of syllables so you can sing the lines. And you'll see that I had to make some choices and changes. I'll go through this one again. Guitar leans upon the wall. This love of ours, a gentle song, bringing to your lover's heart sweet delight. It's calm enough to think here, with time enough to dream here. And through the window, you can see Corcovado, asterisk, up above, our Savior. I want our love to always be, to have you here and close to me. Da, 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 da. There's things about this I don't like. I'm going to have to do another draft after this one. Until the wind blows out that candle's old light, and to think I once was lonely without faith in this world. When I met you is when I found out just what is happiness, my love. I used an asterisk here because trying to replace Corcovado with something American is impossible. Imagine taking this song and putting the Statue of Liberty in the middle of it. It's maybe as close as we can get, and that's a technique that you can use. In fact, you do use as a translator, is you foreignize when you make a American audience have to become a little Brazilian to understand, and you domesticate when you have a Brazilian song that you're trying to make a little more American. And that's domestication far too far. Can't do it, but I still think it's important. How do you tell somebody, well, here's a footnote, which is also a nice little cheater thing. And I hoped when I wrote this little footnote that it would be pretty and also get the point across. It's got some of the rhymes in it. Wall and song don't rhyme as well as violão and canção in the original, but in English we're allowed to have slant rhymes, partial rhymes, and in Portuguese and Spanish you don't need them because it's so much easier to find rhymes. Notice that delight is a rhyme with way down in the second stanza with light. In English you're allowed to rhyme identical words. Candlelight and light is depending on your choice as a poet, you can call that a rhyme. And notice that in the original there's a rhyme way up in the very first, or I guess the third line, that isn't echoed till much later in the poem. There's also a lot of unrhymed words. Now, the problems here, Corcovado doesn't mean anything to my audience. I am thinking about my intended American audience. Also, Christ the Redeemer doesn't really mean that much to me. I think the translator needs to have an emotional attachment. These are problems that we need to take care of to have a successful translation. The other one, I've got a big question with até o apagar da velha chama. Until the going out of the old flame. What is he talking about? I chose to translate this poem in the first place because I didn't know what this song was about. I had heard it, really, I thought, man, that's going to be hard to understand. Sounds like a great thing. And here it is 2011 and I'm still working on it. So we need to do something with this Corcovado, this Christ thing, and this flame, which I think is kind of a neat image. And you'll see that I'm going to move the images around a little bit in the next translation. Look at the second draft. The Quiet Room by Candlelight. Candlelight is in the wrong place now. It's now the opening part of the song. A lover's song, a lover's sigh. I think light and sigh go together better than wall and song. Wall is not a pretty thing, is it? And corner doesn't sound very good either. This is a song about love. The first, I should say the source text, immediately in the first line, you know this has everything that a Bossa Nova is supposed to have. Num cantinho violão. Okay, in a little corner, which is a cozy thing, little corner, a violão. Okay, we're talking about, this is music talking about itself. This is very intellectual music, and it's already there in the first line. Es de amor, uma canção. Oh, he's using a song to get a date. This is a very Brazilian song. Okay, so I'm looking back at the lyrical translation again. The Quiet Room by Candlelight, a lover's song, a lover's sigh, here beneath the arms of Corcovado. There's calm enough to think here, and time enough to dream here, about outside my window up above the mountain. Perfection. I want this life to always be. Having you here so close to me, still not happy. Until and after that flame's last light. And to think I once was lonely, I'd given up on this old sad world. When I met you, loved her, I found out just what is happiness, my love. I think it's getting closer. Okay, I took that really central line that the song turns on, right in the middle. Christ the Redeemer. Corcovado, that's where the melody and the harmony of the song turns, and you're in the second part. And instead I've put this idea of the mountain. I think that it's a little weak still, the idea of perfection. No, it's not there yet. It's a little bit weak. And also, we've got problems with the rhythm of the song. They can't sing this one. I wouldn't try. I really like that Corcovado is still here. And I also think that it starts to be, I think it starts to be obvious to a reader that Corcovado must be a mountain. And I can get into the nature part of it. I think that's something I can live with as a translator. And hopefully a poet. I think that to be a translator of poetry, you have to be a poet. And I think you have to believe in what you're doing. When I read a Robert Bly book of translations this thick, I don't feel that he was there for every single one. Maybe I shouldn't put down Robert Bly. All right. So this, I think, maybe brings the poem a little bit more to the translator and fails on that. Turn to Quiet Nights of Quiet Stars, and this would be maybe a deletion is what I called it. A deletion of the central image. We are going to, in this one, take the beauty of the song and make that central. And the words are just going to be kind of close. Quiet nights of quiet stars, quiet chords for my guitar, floating on the silence that surrounds us. Quiet thoughts and dreams. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Quiet walks by quiet streams, and a window on the mountains and the sea. How lovely. That's a lot of quiet. That's a lot of silence. This guy, Gene Lees, took what he found in the song and he brought it something different. He substituted, which is you have to do it in translation, especially in poetry. You can't get right to the thing. You need to make a substitution. And I like it. I'm all for this one so far. Let's see how he does in the second stanza. This is where I want to be, here with you so close to me, until the final flicker of life's ember. I, who was lost and lonely, believing life was only a bitter, tragic joke, have found with you the meaning of existence, oh my love. And I think it's a disaster. There's a lot of triteness here. The meaning of existence, the bitter, tragic joke. And I don't like the alliteration of the final flicker of life's ember. The person who wrote this had to do some interpretation of the song because a really talented poet means the double meanings. Means for you to have to search a little bit for the meaning so that later you think, oh, now I get it. But not in this version. It's the final flicker of life's ember. It's like right in your face. Do it again, Gene. But actually it sold very well, so it was fine. So the word I want to get back to in the original version, if you don't mind turning pages over and over again. Até o apagar da velha chama, until the going out of the old flame. E eu que era triste. It's all right to use plain words like sadness and sad, triste. And it also lets you know that you're living in a bossa nova, because it's like one of those key words. It's like, how can I use triste to really make them feel sad this time? And then this word, however, descrente, deste mundo, descrente is a devastating word. This means a breaking of belief. This is faith being shook underneath a mountain with Christ on top of it. This word actually is extremely powerful, and that's as a writer, as a translator, you need to do something with it. And what Gene Lees did with it is he turned it into, I was lost and lonely, believing life was only a bitter, tragic joke. And I think it's a joke. Descrente is such a, it hurts. It hurts. Okay, so you can see we've got lots of things that we have to deal with, starting with just words. And second of all, we need to find out what the meaning of those images are. And translators can choose what theory they're going to work from and choose which theory they want to that's going to have the most success. And one thing you can think of is, how did this poem or this song affect the original audience? And I want to affect my audience the same way, or a similar way, as close as they can get to feeling the way that people who just bought the 45 in Brazil in 1960, you know, how they must have felt. And so we can use different words to get you to that place. I hope. There's other things that you can do as well. In the back, you can see that I've got names of some of the tools that translators can use: neutral presentation, formatization, domestication. I told you about some other things too. But you can see that the idea of equivalence of meaning is actually a touchy one, especially in poetry. And I think it brings us closer to knowing what language is and maybe how the mind works. So this little tiny paper is my newest translation. This is from 2011. I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's a lot of yours, maybe. It's on the floor somewhere. Oh, here, I have an extra. So,
I think now there's one too.
Corcovado. A quiet room by candlelight, a lover's song, a lover's sigh, here beneath the arms of Corcovado. There's calm enough to think here, and time enough to dream here, silhouettes of mountains under stars. Above us through my window, I want this life to always be having you here so close to me. When candles go out, stars shine that much brighter. And to think I once was lonely, through and done with love and loving. When I met you, lover, I found out just what is contentment, oh my love. Woo. Thank you very much. All right. I would love if we talked about it a little bit, but let's take a short minute for people to get more to drink. Yes. And to say hi to the people who came in. Hi. Thank you, Lisa.
Could I get you a glass of water, Liz?